Hey there, this is Lee Matos, Senior Support Engineering Manager at GitLab, and I'm very excited to talk through some of the iterations we've made to the performance factor worksheets. I have 3 tabs up here, and I have the worksheets in a separate group. I'm going to do a very quick overview. Everything that I'm covering here should be covered in this thread. I'm hoping to just help you navigate that. Wei Ming started us off with feedback for intermediates and seniors. The core bit of his feedback here for intermediates was around the need to be a stable counterpart to be exceeding. There were some challenges if you're an APAC that may be hard. So I heard that and I made an adjustment where I said you may be a stable counterpart or contributing with large amounts of product interactions, right? So that's in the worksheet. That's in the intermediate section here, and we cover that. I'm looking for it. Give me 1 second. It's in this worksheet. It's covered. It's in this section here. So that's Wei Ming's first point addressed. When it comes to seniors, Wei Ming's point was around you have been recently promoted and this feeling that if you're promoted, that puts you in developing automatically. 1, I want to start by saying if you're in developing, there's nothing wrong with that. 2, if you're recently promoted and in developing, there's nothing wrong with that. 3, you may be promoted and you may or may not land in developing, depend on where you are actually with your skill set. So I have adjusted this to say you may have been recently promoted, right? And so with everything I've just said, as people grow in our team through promotions and skills and other things, your scorecard may have some things developing, some things performing, and maybe sometimes exceeding as well. That whole range is there to encompass the entire range. It's not you're going to be slammed to exceeding or if performing is the only thing that's good. Nope, they're all good. They're all something that is trying to help you have an accurate representation with your manager of where your strengths are and where you want to grow. So addressed that. Wei Ming had some other feedback here around the performing and exceeding sections for senior engineers. We did not change anything here. We're keeping it the same. These are a heuristic. They're not going to be perfect. It should help. If it's not clear, talk with your manager about how we can capture what you're trying to capture and make sure that we address it in each person's worksheet. So otherwise, we go into advanced troubleshooting skills. This one was pretty straightforward. I adopted Wei Ming's language here and then also included you may have been recently promoted here. So that was pretty straightforward. So it's just outlining the technologies, right? We're calling them out a little bit more specifically. This next section was valuable because Jane and I talked about this last night. It is identical for engineers and senior and intermediate. The thing to know about that is the difference between a senior and an intermediate is really coming down to ticket work and ticket engagement and how they're engaging there. The other components of our team where intermediates and seniors work, think about assessments, think about contributing to issues. We're not expecting a strong difference there, right? Think about this. If I have a senior or an intermediate do an assessment, I expect the same result. If I have a senior or an intermediate proctoring an interview, I don't have different expectations for a senior. They may have more experience, but that's just they have more experience. I don't think that it's the expectation of the way that people are contributing as a part of the team is different. Same when it comes to values, right? For an engineer and a senior and an intermediate, I'm not expecting the values to be differently lived out, right? So that's something where they are the same and that's intentional. Wei Ming called out here as well around growth pillars. So I'll just pull that up now because that's new. The growth pillars in the worksheet, those are coming from people ops. We did not evolve or change anything here. We're using exactly what they're giving us, and that's intentional. We need to give them feedback on this. So as you use it, we need to give feedback to people ops. So that's addressing Wei Ming, and that's kind of half this issue. All of this here covers exactly what I said above. So from there, Jane just made some quick edits to the front page here where on the front page of the senior sheet, so this is intermediate, and on the senior sheet, these were not filled in. So Jane filled those in. Thanks, Jane. We couldn't figure out one of them, but Jane and already did. Then diversity, inclusion, and belonging was not accurate to what the handbook had. So that was updated. So that's updated as per this. This is a side convo here. This one is key. This one's really important. So I want to take a second here because this is going to be helpful. What Jane is talking about here is when you look at effective communication, we have this really clear structure, team member, people manager. In that, when it comes to managers of one, that structure is not as clear. Here's the list, but we do call out team members and people leaders. So we helped to clarify in there, pay attention to which ones say team members, pay attention to which ones say people leaders. That's the way we can use it now. It's not perfect, but it helps and it aligns and it solves this problem. So hopefully that helps. Rebecca outlined that we had looking at SSAT and CSAT for engineers and the ratings that they get. And Rebecca said that we haven't shared that across the globe and that's not a standard, so we shouldn't be measuring on that. And I think that that's fair in the short term, that we should take that out as a core component, because you and your manager may talk about it or you and your manager may not talk about that regularly. And we don't think that that's fair across the globe, so that's been removed. Weiming asked about support manager escalations. I wasn't able to come up with a clear way of, is this a senior responsibility? Is this an intermediate responsibility? Is this performing, or what does that look like across performing, developing, exceeding? But as a manager and as a support engineer, if you're doing this and you're making an active effort, talk about that. And let's figure out where that lines up in the role. It's definitely something that's helpful. And I know that some engineers are prioritizing that, and that's thank you. But otherwise, it hasn't been captured well enough yet. So I think this next iteration will need to find a better way to capture it, but I wasn't able to come up with a way to add that. From there, the issues were, the worksheets were hidden. They're now available to everyone. And I just want to wrap up with this last bit here to echo. So heuristic, these worksheets will never be perfect. They should act as a guide and say, yeah, that sounds like me. I'm at performing, or no, on this section, that sounds like me. I'm a little bit closer to developing, right? Or in this section, actually, I think I might be exceeding, right? We don't expect everyone to aim for or be exceeding in everything, right? I want to be clear about that. You as a person, that may be something that you want to strive for, and I don't want to stop you, but I also don't want to stress you. That's okay, right? With that, this point of this is aligning, right? Aligning across managers and engineers, and that's the key point. And I want to highlight here as well, don't view developing as a negative. We all may have components that we're developing in, and that's okay, right? I have things on my worksheet that I'm developing on, and that's perfectly fine, right? So I want to just echo that to the team, that that's not a reflection of the value or your ability to contribute. That's just you and your manager aligning on where your skills are developing and where your skills are strong. That's it. And as long as you're aligning on that and working together to achieve what you want, that is the key point. So don't get hung up on, I'm not exceeding everywhere, right? Don't stress yourself over that. Use this as an alignment tool. So just want to end on that note. Thank you all. Hope this helps. Peace.